You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy. Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for February 25th, 2025. I am Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy Houston, Texas. And the Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep. Today is an unusual day because Ed is home sick and he feels terrible. And so he is monitoring our, he's sort of setting this up and then he's going to go back to bed, I think. So today we're not going to talk about paper. We're going to push that a little bit farther down the road. Today is just going to be an open conversation for you guys to ask me questions, and we're just going to record that and publish it as a, open conversation today. So bear with me. I'm going to do my best to make it work. I am not the techno wizard that Ed is. So I don't normally have to do this functionality on the backside. So forgive me for being clumsy about it, but hopefully we'll be able to have a conversation anyway. So I think I have muted everybody. And I think, according to Ed, that if you want to talk to me, I need to ask you to unmute. And so if you could just raise your hand if you have a question or you have a story to tell, then give me a shout out, and I will do my best to unmute you so that you can have a conversation with me. I appreciate that so much. This is I appreciate you showing up today, and I know this is a little odd, but forgive me and give me a question or two to throw out at you guys. Who has something to talk about? You can leave them unmuted once. Okay. Goodwill. I see comments over here from, Bella says, I dropped off items to Savers for donation. They don't take baby items that hold baby's weight for liability. They took a look in the store. Items were price expensive. And I looked into who makes profit, found a document about how Goodwill profits doesn't all go to the charity. They hire disabled staff to operate machinery. Oh, goodness. I think that some of that stuff about Goodwill is a little bit exaggerated, but it is still a nonprofit, and everything that they do is in service to their mission. So I'm going to go on record and say I still support Goodwill and donate things to Goodwill, and everybody has their choice. So if you prefer not to, then that's totally up to you. Miss Rowan. Okay, so I'm going to say, I sent an ask to unmute. Did it work? Oh, you did. I can hear you. Yay.
A quick thought on charities.
Mm-hmm.
Charities that have paid staff, the prices are a lot higher because they have to cover that.
Sure, and they have overhead and all that stuff, right?
There's huge overhead, and staffing is an enormous overhead.
Right.
Whereas in my town, when I go to there's certain charities where all the staff is volunteers, except maybe one manager, and the prices are a lot lower. But staffing costs have gone up and up and up, and then there's health insurance and everything else.
All that stuff, and the person that's working is entitled to be paid, right? So I mean, an operation like Goodwill can't operate with 100% volunteers. It's different than the local church guild shop or resale store that's being funded by one particular group of volunteers all the time, and it's only one store. Goodwill clearly has to have staff to function. So you're right about that.
Also,
paying people's expensive.
I would like you to talk about the concept of need, and that because so many of us are keeping things because we might need it. And how to reframe how we think about how we define need.
Okay. All right, throwing a hard one at me right away, Rowan.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
That's okay. That's good. That's a good challenge for me. Okay, I'm gonna meet you. There you go. Thank you. So Rowan wants to talk about need, and I think that is she what she's describing is something that I hear often, that people say, I keep it because I might need it. And what you're really describing there is a fear, right? You're afraid that you might suddenly require something that you might have kept and have given away. And then you might need it and you won't have it. And what does that mean? And I think that creates a fear that we don't think beyond. Our initial response is, oh my gosh, I'm in a panic. I needed that and I don't have it. And what's going to happen if I don't have it? And the truth is, we are generally, my listeners are grown-ups. I don't have a lot of little kids listening to me. So you're viable adults and you have been taking care of yourself for a long time. And so should that need show up, you are going to be able to come up with a solution. If you needed something specific and you don't have it, it may be true that you don't have the specific first thing that comes to mind, but that doesn't mean that you aren't someone who is creative and can come up with other things instead, that you can come up with an alternate solution. And we have all been in the position where we've had to figure out a workaround to something because our initial first response, the way that I would solve this problem is A. And, how many times does plan A work out? We often have to go to plan B and plan C to solve a problem. And so I know that we sit in a sense of, I might need it, which reflects a panic, that we're a fear that we're going to be without something that we need. But it at the same time discounts our ability to adapt and to come up with a different solution. And so I think everybody responds to fear in the same way. As soon as you start to feel fear, uh, we panic, we get distressed, and we throw up our hands and feel like we can't cope. But if you stop and think your way past the fear for a minute, you can realize that there's a way to get past it. There's always you can always come up with an alternative plan. And if the fear is big enough, maybe it takes you a while before you can accept that there's an alternative plan. But there always is. And you're talking about, am I going to need this light bulb? Yeah, maybe you're going to need a light bulb someday. But is this the light bulb that you need to keep? Or do you need to keep these 37 light bulbs because they don't all even fit in the fixtures that you have in the house? I know people that end up with supplies that don't actually work in their home. When I go through and sort through the stack of light bulbs in the utility room, I find a whole bunch of light bulb styles that they don't have lamps or sockets for in the house, which is the same as you go through the linen closet and there's a bunch of bedding and you have bedding for bed sizes that you don't have in the house. So you end up with supplies that you might need that but wouldn't actually function in your house. And so I understand the basic fear of being without and not being able to come solve the problem, and and struggling with panic about not having what you need and being in trouble. But that sort of basic human fear of, can I take care of myself? Can I solve my problems? Can I keep myself afloat? Is a much bigger one than what happens if I don't have this light bulb. And so I think we sort of tap into a primal sense of worry that we can't take care of ourselves. And it's a much bigger fear than the actual stuff that we're worried about, not whether we need to keep it or not. Does that make sense? We kind of make it we make it a bigger fear than what it actually is, which is, if I don't have this piece of paper, will I still be able to answer the person's question, prove that I paid my bill, prove that I filed my tax return? Yeah, you're probably going to be able to figure it out. Or you'll probably live with the consequences of not being able to figure it out. Like sometimes you can't solve the problem and you live with the consequences of not being able to solve the problem. But are they life-threatening or destroy you? There's not very much in your house that if you don't have and can't deal with, prove to somebody that something happened, that your life is going to be destroyed. Your life may be interrupted. You may be annoyed that day. You may, have it may create a problem that is difficult for you to solve, but it's not as big or as disruptive as you think it's going to be. And we don't need to attach the existential fear of can we take care of ourselves to whether or not that extra laundry detergent needs to stay in my house. There. And then I think I'm going to stop on that one and shift to Naomi. And so let me ask to unmute there.
Yeah. So I think one of something that's very helpful with just in case is you would to add a word, say just in case of what? Like, am I
Exactly.
I'm holding this toaster doesn't work anymore, but I'm holding on to it on the assumption that, maybe I'll fix it. And maybe someday the new toaster I bought won't work, and then I'll need to pull out the old toaster. Well,
it doesn't work.
It already doesn't work.
In this scenario.
Well, just in case of what? What if the toaster stops working? I might have to eat my bread untoasted one day until I go to the secondhand store and buy another toaster. That's quite a different from.
We'll be right back.
Struggling to keep up with life and work because of ADHD? On the Learn to Thrive with ADHD podcast, I share practical strategies and mindset shifts to help you follow through, stay focused, and thrive. Think of it as having your own ADHD coach in your pocket. Listen on your favorite podcast app or visit learntothrivewithadhd.com/podcast.
That's a different just in case than just in case, like there's a power failure and the water treatment plant has shut down for 3 days. I should keep that jug of drinking water as a just in case, but I do not need to keep the already broken toaster just in case.
Well, and if the toaster breaks and you don't have a spare toaster, that means you have to put your toast in the oven and toast it in the oven one day, like put it in the broiler, like, oh my God, right? Like you're right about that just asking the rest of the question, just in case I can't toast my bread one day, like, that's a way to bring it back and make it really obvious about what are you that afraid of that you're not going to be able to do. Here's somebody said, I kept a big container of gift wrap because we might need it. We never need as much as I've kept. If we need a gift wrap, there's usually something around the house I can use to make do, newspaper, paper bag, etc. There's a dollar store less than 3 miles from my home. We quit giving a lot of gifts. So all of that gift wrap just because we might need it. And then she came up with 4 reasons why she didn't. And so I think that's a great one, Ginger, because that's absolutely true. Like there's workaround. And I think a lot of times the question, what if we need it, is really answered by, I don't want to think about it that hard. I don't want to make a decision right now. People they think about it and they go, yeah, I don't want to think about that right now. So I'll just keep it just in case. And the just in case is the justification, the blanket justification that allows you to stop thinking about it and not make a decision. It's like, I get it. But I think at that point, you're really telling me, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I need a break, I've been at this too long, whatever. If I'm at decision fatigue, where my response is, I'm going to keep this just in case, then I think you have to acknowledge that you're at decision fatigue. And it's not because you don't need to make a decision. It's because right now you're a little fried and that you need to take a break from what you're working on and come back to it later. There are things that are time sensitive that we have to do by a certain time, but there's not a whole lot. And really most things around decluttering and organizing your home are not time sensitive. They can be done according to when you have the free time and the will and when you get on about your business. And so occasionally I'm moving and I have to move by this deadline, and therefore I need to get it done even though I'm exhausted. So that does happen for people that are trying to prep for a move. unpacking on the other end is you've got infinite time to unpack. So it's the leading up to it part that's hard and time sensitive. There's not a whole lot else. It might be, well, but even I was starting to say, you get married and you move in with somebody, but even that's moving. It's a moving project. So the moving part is the part that might be, have a pretty hard out, hard end date that has to be complete. But otherwise, this stuff is all stuff that you can do in your own time and under your own steam. And when you get decision fatigue, it's time to stop. It means that you've worked longer than you really need to, or you really have the capacity to. And so stop, come back to it when you're fresh again. Stop and have lunch and come back to it again. And I will say this about paper. Paper always takes longer than you think. And when people start focusing on it, they feel like they have to stay at it for hours and hours and hours. It's different how people react to paper and versus how they go to the linen closet or they go to the kitchen. Somehow when they sit down with paper, they feel like they need to keep at it for 16 hours. And I think it's because they don't see a whole lot of movement. Like paper is so small and you can't see a lot of change on your desk, and you've spent 3 hours and you've moved 15 pieces of paper and it doesn't feel like you've gotten anywhere. And so I think people feel like they have to beat themselves and flog themselves harder about it, and so they stay longer than normal. But paper in particular, decluttering in general, you have to work while you have the capacity and the focus and the ability to make decisions. And when that starts getting hard, it means it's time for a break and it's time to step back and recover before you go back in again. So Maureen says, from your experience, what is the easiest thing or item each of us can do to reduce clutter in our homes? I've been working in my basement and been so surprised by how many boxes, empty, mostly Amazon, are down there. I will tell you that is a very, anybody that does any kind of online shopping at all, I find tons of empty boxes, and I find tons of boxes that have never been opened, that like the shipment came and then they don't open the package. And so that is a first place that I start a lot, is I go through grabbing boxes, because a completely opened but uncollapsed box takes up a huge amount of space. It really looks like there's chaos when it's one box and it's gone. And so I do go through and kill a bunch of empty boxes and take them out to recycling. And it takes a while. If somebody's been ignoring boxes for a long time, yeah, you end up with a massive amount of small, medium, large, little bitty small, but then all the way up to much bigger, depending on what you've been buying. And so there's always a ton of cardboard that can come out. And then opening up the shipments that came that never got opened, it's like, yeah, this box was worth you buying. And it needs to be opened up, and you need to claim what you've got, right? And so let's slash open those boxes and take those things out to recycling and look at what you bought and incorporate it into your house. This is the online, the online shopping equivalent of going to the store and buying the stuff in the store and coming home with things in a bag and then putting the bag in the closet and never opening it. I don't know why that part of the process, other than people go shopping for the fun of it. They do online shopping for the fun and the entertainment of it. And it just reflects to me that they didn't really want it that bad or need it that bad. They just wanted the fun of shopping online or the fun of shopping at the store. They weren't desperate for the item that they brought home. They were just trying to, get a little surge of entertainment. And so that is a place that I stop, getting all those boxes out and shoving them in the recycling bin. I take great pride in being able to stuff a recycling bin completely. Other people would have given up 50 boxes before me, and I'm like, oh, we're not done. And I keep folding boxes and shoving them in there, and I can fill up that 96-gallon bin like nobody's business. They take away a lot of recycling when I've been stuff in their box. Yeah, that's the other thing is I will start with mail when I'm decluttering people's houses if they'll let me. Sometimes people find that a difficult place to start. But if there's lots of mail laying around in piles and it's super easy for me to go through and pull the recycling part out and get get down to the concentrated mail that probably is mail that they need to handle or manage. Even if we don't handle and manage it in that moment, I've reduced the volume of paper in the house by 80% just by going through and plucking out all the stuff that didn't get that's trash. And so taking that step that other people sort of avoid actively about mail. People bring the mail in, but they don't want to touch it or filter it. And so that is something that I try to do off the top, particularly if in any room that we start in, if there's a bunch of mail sitting around, I will pull it out and start digging out, dig, and then hand them mail that probably needs to be opened and let them look at the reduced volume stuff and just sort of just force the issue with paper so that it gets out of the way, because it's always on top of everything that I need to work in and declutter anyway. If somebody has a paper problem, it's always in the way. So I do try to make people go through stacks that are in our working area. Here's a question from Rowan. What are the biggest obstacles for clients in your experience? The biggest obstacles are almost always the keepsakes. So furniture that they've inherited from their family, china, silver, and crystal they inherited from their family, photos they inherited from their family, and then the cards and photos that you've gotten in your lifetime, not the ones that you've inherited, but the one that have been generated in your lifetime. Those keepsakes are always a problem for people. And it's a spectrum of how distressing you find that stuff or not, and how attached you are to that stuff or not. There's some people that have this sensation of, if it was part of my historical family, like this came from great grandma, fill in the blank, 4 generations back, and now I've inherited the table, and you don't love the table and you are making space for the table, even though it's not your thing. There are people that feel guilty and sort of bound to keeping the table in the family, even though they're the ones that have received it and they're not into it anymore. And I think if you feel attached to your family history and there's furniture and objects in the house that represent family history to you, then I think that one is a really hard release. It's a very hard challenge for people to face and to think about. And I introduce the concept of, you are now the person that's received it, and now you are the owner and you get to choose what to do with it. But often people that feel that sense of history around the piece find that they don't feel like they really own it. They feel like they're the stewards of it instead, like they're the keeper they've received it from somebody and they have to pass it to somebody. Like that's their only available option, is to pass it along. It's like, is there no one else in your broader family that would like this? If you are not finding it useful now, the fact that it's been in your family for 200 years doesn't really matter at this point. But sometimes people find that a hard one to swallow. So it is difficult. So I would say keepsakes in general. People have odd responses to photographs. So sometimes people, if there's a photograph of anybody that's ever been in their family, even if they can't remember who it is, they feel like they have to keep it. And some people are funny about throwing away photographs. Makes them feel like they're throwing away the person. Like the fact that there's an image of somebody that they either know or they accept as someone in their family, even if they didn't know them, if it's older. But it happens with, these are pictures of my kids too. Like the idea of throwing away those pictures when kids are in elementary school and they get pictures, you get a photo packet that you're supposed to cut up and hand out to, people. They always have 17 8x10s they didn't give away. They have 150 little wallet sized ones they didn't give away, because we don't exchange photos that way anymore. But there's always, and then they can't throw, it's like the same photo and they have 15 copies of it in 27 sizes, and yet they can't release them because it's a picture of their kid. Like, well, there's the framed one that you kept hanging on the wall. Why do you need the 37 copies that you have? And somehow that is a really hard ask to let go of those extras. And other people are not so attached to photos, but if you are attached to photos, then even the ones that are blurry and messy, even the ones that are, this is the birthday party, and I don't know who that person is anymore. It, sometimes even those are hard for people to let go of. There you go. And Claire says, I guess you're talking about the furniture. I recommend writing the history and then sell it along with the story. If it's really, really old, the Historical Society might want it. It is the story that's most important, especially if there are names, dates, or photos. Yes. And Deborah says, I come from a big family, and so only keep things that are my memories, not others. Exactly. And sometimes there's a person that is the last one standing. We all know people who all of the relatives have passed away and you're the last one alive. And so you haven't inherited all of the stuff from everybody. And then ultimately that person may or may not have kids, may or may not have somebody to inherit from them. And if they're truly the last one standing, like you're single or you were married, but you didn't have children. If you're really the last one, then here's where the chain stops and you have to release it to go. And it's going to become part of somebody else's family life. And so I know people have trouble with that kind of stuff. So furniture, photos. Oh, and the cards. I need to say something about the cards too. Everybody writes birthday cards, anniversary cards, Valentine's cards. And the people in your life that have been around for a long time, your parents, your kids, your spouse, your siblings, you're going to receive those cards over and over and over again over their lifetime, over your lifetime. So you're going to have, 50 cards from your mother. You're going to have 25 cards from your brother. And so do you need to keep all of them? No. And some people do the card thing and they just sign their name in the bottom. And I just want to scream when I look at those. Like, there's only a signature here. They didn't even put a personal note on it. Why is that important to keep? And so if you have 25 or 50 to choose from, you can pick the best ones. You don't have to keep 100%. You can pick the one where the person actually wrote you a note, or the one that represents a big birthday for you, or the one that, and so here, Junior says, I have a big family. I'm the family historian. I've got the photos, Grandpa's World War I diary and photo album. I transcribed the diary and distributed to the family at our annual reunion. Oh, I bet that was fun reading. I bet they enjoyed having that. And somebody's going to have the photos after you're gone. Like somebody has to inherit your role as the family historian. So I think, bigger families, there's more options for you to release and send things on somewhere else. And even so, I think you should filter every time it passes through your hands. I think you should filter and lessen the burden that you pass to the next person. I have seen a lot of people who are like, yeah, I inherited that from my mother and I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to let my kids deal with it. It's like you're just passing that sorting burden down to the next generation. And why do you need to do that? All right. Who else has a topic they want to talk about today? What's on your minds? How's your organizing going this week? Yeah, everybody. Catherine says finding your roots is interesting. Different things found, and everybody is attracted to different things too. Everybody finds different things appealing and special. So, yeah, I don't know if everybody realizes we're winging it here today. So, if you want, here comes a question. In Goodbye Things, the author recommends auction houses. Is this what we call estate sale handlers or something different? How do they work? Pros and cons, do you recommend? I had some bad experiences with 2 different estate sale companies, so hesitant to entrust a bulk sale, including high price items, to a similar operation. So I think that estate sale companies, just like any other company, there's good versions and bad versions of them. There are people that have the expertise in the stuff and aren't necessarily great at running businesses. So you expect them to have all the knowledge about your items and price them appropriately and get them sold. And you expect them to be good at running businesses and managing staff and all that kind of stuff. And, that's a pretty high ask. So you definitely want to go with an estate sale company that has a good reputation. And sometimes in order to do that, you have to wait because they're very busy and they're running a lot of auctions all the time and it's hard to get into their schedule. So it's not something you can usually make happen in a hurry. I have successfully used Max Sold, which is an online selling auction. And basically they come and take photographs of everything in lots in your house, and they put it up for auction and sell it. And then they meet people at the house to have those lots picked up and taken away. And the thing about an estate sale is it's like a pop-up store, and you can't expect everything to happen, everything to be sold exactly what you think it was worth, because there may not be the audience. And that weekend, when you have your estate sale, you sell what your weekend audience is going to buy. And so it is a wholesale operation. It's not a retail operation. And, some things may sell for the price that the estate sale company sets, but usually they mark everything at a price for the first day, and then the next day they discount it some, and the next day they discount it some more, because they want the stuff to sell and they want it to walk off. And so those who are collecting specific things come on the first day, and they pay the original price for it, and they walk off with it, and then the rest of the stuff gets picked up at a discount. And so, and like the estate sale that I had over that my client did over the summer last year, she had so much glassware that her mom and dad had collected from resale shop, treasure hunting that they had done. And there was a whole bunch of glass. And so some of it sold, but there was whole sets of stuff that didn't sell. And so at the end, those things got donated anyway, even though, ultimately, if there'd been 15 more sales, some of it might have sold. But that's the nature of a estate sale, right? It's a one-time pop-up store that gets built, and who shows up that weekend is who takes the stuff away, and they take it away at a different price depending on what of the 3 days they come. And so I think people have an expectation that estate sales are going to sell everything at 100% retail, as if the stuff was in a resale store waiting for the right customer to show up over a 3-month period. And it's just not the same thing. And so if you go the resale route and you put it in a resale store, they're the ones paying for the overhead. They're the ones running the store and manning the store and creating a retail environment. And so you have to share the expense, the revenue that you've gotten from the item, you have to share with the store, because they're the ones doing all the work. They're making the store happen. And so there isn't anything about selling goods on the back end that is about getting full retail value for it. It's just not a reasonable expectation in that environment. So A, you want reputable estate people. B, you can go the online auction way. The same thing happens there. It'll get sold. Some of it may get sold super cheap, but it'll get sold and it'll disappear from the house. And then auction houses are the same kind of thing, but auction places usually are auctioning off more specific collectible items. They're not looking to auction off whole estates. Now there's a few things. There's a few auction, like, somebody goes and they auction off a property and all the contents. That may happen, but most of you guys aren't trying to do that. You're trying to just sell off your own things or sell off an estate contents and the house separately. And so an estate sale company is a solution. An auction house, like I said, I think an auction house, the original question was, what about auction houses? The splits are similar. You're not going to get 100% of the money, but they're the ones that have the audience. They have the mechanism to make it happen. They're the ones that providing all the work. And so of course they have to share in the revenue. And an auction house is, like I said, most of the time is going to be looking for specific collectibles, or they focus on specific types of goods. It's an auction house that doesn't just do any random thing. And so it depends on how much and what you're trying to get rid of. Okay, then hold on. There was one more question here. I would accept any funds from auction houses. How do I find one near me? I tried online, but I got a bunch of links to India. Yeah, that's not okay. Yeah, so how to Google for that. So clearly you have to say, auction house and with your city attached. And it may be that there isn't one, but I would also go to check with a real estate agent and see if they know about one. And also I would check, locally, you might check with resale stores that are local and see if they know about an auction house as well, because they might be buying from auction houses to stock their stores. So you might try that as well. So Patty says, I get frozen on decluttering projects when I don't have a big chunk of time. Can you give advice on phasing larger projects to help me get unstuck? I tend to be a black and white thinker in general, so seeing the gray areas is difficult. Okay, so I guess what I'm reading between the lines here is that you get started on the project and you want to be able to get all the way to the end. That's the black and white for you, is that you start it and you want to get finished, and the fact that it's larger than you can do in one sitting sort of doesn't factor in. So phasing the larger projects really is about going through and looking at the project and thinking of all of the stages of the project that are in that room, in that topic, in that coverage area, whatever it is that you're trying to focus on, and trying to decide how you can make it into smaller pieces. In a room, the most obvious way is to just do a section at a time. So I would go into a room and pick the table, and let's say it's a dining table and it's completely covered, then I would focus on, a third end of the table and don't work on anything else but that end. And let that be your project for the day. Because within a room that is complete chaos, there is all of that work that needs to be done, and it can't all be done in one sitting. So even if you just think of it as blocks of time, that there's several blocks of time in the room that need to be addressed, then you can just say, okay, I'm going to have to spend 20 hours in here. Therefore, I can't do that all in one sitting. Therefore, I'm going to do 2 hours at a time. And that 2 hours is going to be this corner of the room, or this chair that's covered, or this end of the dining table that's covered, or this stuff that's on the floor. I have a client whose dining table, I'm referencing dining table in my head because I have a client whose dining table is a pretty long one. It's designed to sit six, six people probably. And it's completely covered in a craft area. And it's about 2 feet tall on top of the dining table. And then around the dining table was stuff on the floor in a big circle around the dining table as well, and things under the table. And so clearly couldn't clear that in a 3-hour appointment, and couldn't even get started barely in 3 hours. And so I've been working my way around the table and uncovering the floor and uncovering the things under the table. And that's where I've been starting. And I've done that, and I've worked on the top of the table some. And so I'm probably 9 hours in so far. And the floor is clear, and I can get up to the table now, and I can sit at it and work, and I'm making headway, but it's going to be a while. So I broke that down by getting the things out from around the table, because those were in my way of walking, and they were also blocking access to where some of the stuff needed to be put away. And so I ignored the table for a while and worked on the floor around the table to clear it. And that was my focus. I know for people with ADHD, and for those of us that are overwhelmed, you start working on the floor and then you see something on the table and you get distracted. And I would just say, as much as you get distracted, remind yourself, at some point you'll go, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then you'll turn back around and just circle yourself back to, even if you get distracted, circle yourself back to what you originally were working on, and keep on going. You'll get there eventually, but the idea of just narrowing your focus down on a big project to one little small area, one little piece at a time, and let that be today's project, and let that be how you move along and make headway, get to the end and go, oh, look, I cleared the chair. That's my black and white end for the day. Hope that helps. Tony says, my sister passed away and left a Star Wars collection. Also, I have a lot of beautiful costume jewelry that have jewels missing. Any ideas? So the costume jewelry that have jewels missing probably aren't collectible because of the damage. By costume jewelry collectors, they're not going to want it because of the damage, unless it's something that's so rare. But I wouldn't know. I mean, you have to be talking to a very experienced and avid collector to be able to tell you that. So I would say generally, if it's damaged, it's lost its value. And so then it becomes source material for crafters to use as something else, to take apart and repurpose as something else. So then I would pass that costume stuff on to some kind of a craft guild, some kind of a a craft creative recycling, creative upcycling center like the Texas Art Asylum here in Houston. And the Star Wars collection, the Star Wars collection, oh my gosh. So the people that are into Star Wars are into Star Wars, right? And depending on what she has, I would go and find the Facebook group, the Reddit group, the Instagram group that is about Star Wars, and put those things up there and say, hey, I have these things and who would be interested, or how would I sell them? And let somebody that's into that collection give you some guidance about how to dispose of it. There's enough people out there that are into Star Wars that it might be worth it. And will you get rich on it? No, you probably won't, but you can still put it in the hands of somebody that is into it by finding where they collectively join to talk about that kind of stuff. Elise says, do you have any questions, suggestions? What questions to ask yourself if you're on the fence regarding sentimental items? So it depends on where you are in the process. If it's your first pass, and you are making your first pass about being on the sentimental stuff, about whether to keep it or not, you can, on the first pass, you can say, okay, I'm not sure. I'm going to put that in the maybe pile and circle back later. Get all the way through everything the first time. And I will tell you that going through a whole bunch of sentimental items and making any choices about any of them will help you get more comfortable with the process. When you get through all the sentimental stuff the first time, all the way through, by then you will have gained some experience and gotten comfortable with the process a little bit. And then when you go back to the ones you put in the maybe pile for the second round, then you can, you come to it with a little bit more experience and skill. So you might find that you can go, oh, I'm ready to let that go. Or if it's still more hesitant, then you can say to yourself, is this person really important to me? Is this the best example of a card, a photo, a keepsake of them? Is this the most valuable keepsake I have from them? Because if it's a really important person to you, you probably have a whole lot of keepsakes related to that person. And so you can pick the ones that are the most emotionally rich to you, the ones that you find to be the most impactful, and you can save those. And if you know that you have several emotionally rich things related to that person, then it makes it easier to let go of what in essence is the extras, because you have the ones with the most bang for the buck already. And so you can let go some of the extras. Marcia Brand has a question. Okay, Marcia, where are you?
Marcia Brand had a question type comment about,
okay,
I think,
okay.
procrastination. So if you go back.
Okay, scrolling. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Talk to us about how to get over procrastination. I have so much trouble getting started, especially with paperwork. Yeah, procrastination. We all have that problem, don't we? So I think the thing about procrastination is the strength of the procrastination is in direct proportion to how much you dread working on the project. So if you cannot imagine yourself spending your day doing that, like, oh God, I don't want to clean out my garage. Like, oh God, I don't want to go through the paper. If it's something that you find really horrifying, then it means that the procrastination is easy to maintain because you really don't want to deal with it. And so I think that the best way to think about it is you really just need to get in motion, right? You need to get past not doing nothing. And so pick the smallest, tiniest thing that you can do towards the project. It doesn't have to be anything large. It doesn't have to be any big deal. You don't have to commit to, okay, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours. You can say, I'm going to work on this for 15 minutes. I'm just going to do it for 15 minutes because I can't bear to do it. And it makes me angry that I have to do it. And I can't be bothered to do it. And I'm so annoyed, and whatever you're feeling, like tell yourself all those feelings and then say, I'm going to do it for 15 minutes. I'm going to do it for 5 minutes. I'm going to work on it for, I'm going to make 2 passes into the garage and move 2 things around and go back in the house. Like, whatever you need to do. Sometimes it's just all you really need is to get into action, to recognize that even though it annoys you to no end, you can still get in motion and you can still do it. And, we're all grown ups. We're all in charge of ourselves, right? So we can decide to procrastinate and not do it. But someone last week was saying she's having a fight between the person that is living with the house as it is and how stressed out it makes her, and the person who doesn't want to deal with it and doesn't want to make the choices to make the action happen. And so I think if you want there to be a difference in your environment, if you don't want to be living with the results that you're living with right now, you have to accept that it's going to require something to take place. It's going to require you to make action and get past your reluctance. And so, as always, the person who benefits from the work that you do, as annoyed as you are about it, is you. The person living in your house is you. The person that is affected by the piles is you. It's not going to help your neighbor down the street if you clean your garage. It's going to help you. And so, even though it's super annoying, you still are the one that is 100% going to benefit from your efforts. And there's not a whole lot, when you go to work, you do all this work and you're working for somebody else and you get paid, but the work benefits somebody else. But when you work in your own home, you are the person that benefits from your results. And so from procrastination to action is just a little bit of movement. And it just requires you to say, I'm going to make myself do something for 5 minutes. I'm in charge of myself. I can make myself do something for 5 minutes, and set the timer. And if it goes off and you feel like your emotion, fine. And if it goes off and you can't take it, you can stop and come back, in an hour and try again. Like, it's just a matter of saying, I know I'm afraid. I know I don't know what to do out here. I know that this project makes me feel overwhelmed. I know I don't see the end result. I know I don't know what the path is to get there. But the thing about decluttering and organizing is there's a whole lot you can do even if you don't know the path. And how you're going to get there can evolve over time. And so you don't have to know all the answers to get started. And there's plenty of things that you can do. Go sit down with a pile of mail. And even if you don't know what to do with the things that came in the mail that are requesting you, I need to pay that bill. I need to call that company and ask them about this. I need to follow up because something has gone wrong here. Like, even if there's action in your mail, it's not all of the mail. And, 85% of the mail is mail that can be recycled. And so even if you can't figure out how to take the actions related to the ones that require action, you can still improve your environment by reducing the mail that needs to go into recycling and getting it out of there. And so you can take steps now that get you in motion, even if you're not ready to face the parts of the problem that you don't know how to solve. Does that make sense? And you will eventually get there. You will eventually figure it out. You will eventually ask for help. You will eventually realize that there is a solution to be had. But you can, in the meantime, be getting rid of the mail that needs to be recycled. Right? That's the truth. Procrastination usually comes down to me simply saying to myself, just do it. Exactly. And then M says, I say, who made this mess? I did. Who can clean it up? At which point I figure I can make better decisions than someone I might hire. And that's true, right? Because this is one of the ways that we feel like we surrendered our autonomy, is when somebody has to come behind us and clean it up for us. Then you start, when you can't do it yourself anymore and other people start making those decisions for you, we feel really out of control about that. We do not like surrendering control. And so you're the one that's making the decision because you have autonomy over your stuff. You're the one that gets to choose. And so, and you're going to make the best choice for you, right? You're going to consider all the things that are important to you and you're going to make the best choice. And so, yeah, it's a hassle that we actually, in order to make our own choices and to be in charge of our lives, we actually have to do the work. Isn't that annoying? Oh, y'all are funny to me today. I have so many nice foodie appliances gently used in their, Janice is telling me this, in their new boxes with instructions. However, I've tried to sell on Craigslist and Marketplace with so much back and forth and waste of time. There used to be stores that would sell your stuff on eBay for you. Is there anything like that left anymore? No, there is not. It was not cost effective because, again, in order to sell things on eBay, they had to have they had to pay somebody to do the work, and people wanted the money, but they didn't want to pay the person to do the work for them, and so it wasn't very cost effective. And things sold on, Craigslist and Marketplace, you're not selling them for full retail value. You're getting a fraction of what you originally paid for it, and so if you just want the gently used things to go away, then you can put them up for free on Facebook Marketplace or on Nextdoor. If you go on nextdoor.com, that's something that's available in the United States. I'm not sure if it's available elsewhere, but the idea is it's similar to it's a community board, and that you put in your zip code, your address and zip code, and then it ties you together to the neighborhood that you live in. So you interact with the neighbors that are actually, in your subdivision. And so you can put it on there, and people will come from all around and pick stuff up. I was helping my friend clean out her garage this past weekend, and we got to a certain point. We had a pile of things that needed to be taken away, and we put them at the end of the driveway and took a couple pictures of all of it as a group and said, "Free to good home." And I immediately started getting responses as soon as the post went up, because people were sitting in the app looking at stuff anyway, and something new goes by and they immediately started responding to it. And we had people at the house in 15 minutes going through the stuff and carrying it off, and it was all gone in a half an hour. Like, I got 9 or 10 notifications from people saying, "Is this stuff available?" "Yes, it is. Come by." And it was gone. Poof, poof, poof. We didn't have to take any of it ourselves. It was all gone. And so it was a flurry of activity that happened in a super rapid motion. And, if you can also, if they're working appliances, you can also donate them, take them. That's the kind of stuff that would be great for Habitat for Humanity, because it's appliances and things that will go into housing that's being built for low income people. So it'd be a great way to donate that stuff away to where it's going to get used responsibly. That'd be a great idea. And usually the Habitat Restores let you come and donate to them at the Habitat Restore. So where they will either put it if they can't use it in the houses, they'll put it for sale in their restore for somebody to buy. And, you can have the tax write-off instead. Jane says, "I do exactly what Gayle said with most of my decluttering. Sorting out the easy stuff and letting it go clears a surprising amount of space." Dana K. White talks about letting go of trash, putting easy stuff away, and letting donations go. Just the first 3 steps of her process made a big difference getting my home in better shape. It's true that the pile that you're usually trying to sort, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And if you just do the low-hanging fruit, if you get rid of the extra boxes, you get rid of the mail that's easy to recycle, if you get rid of the stuff that you already know needs to go to donation and actually take it to donation, because a lot of people make those piles in the corner of the room and then they never actually deliver them. So if you actually take those donations and go put them in the car and take them away, then you will end up with a lot of space that can be gotten rid of. I mean, that can be opened up for you by having that stuff gotten rid of. And so she's right. Do the low-hanging fruit. Do the stuff that's easy and that you already know and you've already made the decision about, or the stuff that's easy, like empty cardboard boxes. What's the decision? I need to recycle that now, right? And so it's easy to go and make a dent that way. May says, "I put my bicycle out with a sign stating 'Free to a good home.' The next day I saw a young boy flying down my street on my old bike." Isn't that cute? Oh, yeah. Oh, and Rowan says, "Here's her tittle suggestion for the week. Just do one thing this week." We are having that conversation today about getting started in procrastination a little bit and being overwhelmed. So that's a great idea. Make a choice of one thing to do today and go do the one thing and see how it goes. I like that tittle suggestion. Thank you, Rowan. What happens 90% of the time? What I dreaded doesn't happen, and the call is very easy and reassuring. That's somebody talking about making the phone calls. I don't want to make phone calls. Oh, gosh. Just do it. That's it. Setting a timer is a great addition to your decluttering process, because for some people, having it's a way of gamifying the process. It's a way of gamification. So, if you're running against a timer, it's like you're playing a game and you want to beat the timer. And so I think we all respond to timers that way, even though it's totally artificial and we know it's artificial, but you can set a timer for 20 minutes and then you're like, I need to run around and see what I can do before the dinger goes off. And so we get into motion because we want to beat the timer. I do this when I'm like, I put something in the microwave and it's going to go for 2 minutes, and then I run around and see how much of the dishwasher I can empty while before the timer goes off. It's just a way to focus your mind with the ticker going in the background, tick, 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 and it focuses you to get something done for a few minutes. And then you realize I emptied the whole top rack before the dinger went off. Like, that was easy. And I don't know, maybe it's distracting as well. The fact that you're paying attention to, it has the timer gone off, is the timer going to go off? Where am I in relationships at the time? And it is a little distracting from the fact that you're emptying the dishwasher, right? The part of your mind is focusing on the time passing and not on the chore that you're doing. And so it makes it a little bit easier. You just need to gamify it, right? And the timer helps you do that. I create a bingo game, a numbered list of my tasks, a bingo grid with random numbers. Bingo. There you go. So she numbers the list of things to do, and then she creates the bingo and picks the number, right? Hey, that works. Whatever works, right? You're just trying to make it fun for yourself. I tend to be somebody who, if I'm working on a project by myself, I'll put on really poppy, dancey music so that there's, I'm like bouncing around while I'm working on something, and it helps. I sing along and I, skip around, and it makes me feel like I'm having fun while I'm doing whatever stupid thing I'm doing. And so it helps me to do that. When I'm with clients, I'm doing the work, but I'm also monitoring the client, interacting with the client, and it's part of the process for me to keep up with how the client is experiencing the process. And so I have a lot of things going on all at the same time as I'm working with them. And usually clients they don't really want music in the background. They find it too distracting. So I don't really do it when I'm with clients, but I do it when I'm doing by myself for sure. All right, you guys, it's 1:00. Does anybody have a burning desire? It says time, right? There's a little clock going on. Oh, if you guys don't have a burning desire, then I am just going to wrap it up and say, thank you for winging it with us today. I appreciate that you guys hung out with me, even though we didn't do our normal show. We promise to circle back and talk about paper another time. And I'll have to talk with Ed and see how we're going to manage that, and the book thing as well. We may keep the book thing where it was and jump the paper to another week. But anyway, we'll work it out. We'll let you know how it's going. Watch all the usual places where we get information out to you. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you so much. And I'll see you later.